The Miller's Tale. Of all the Canterbury Tales, I think this is the one that is the most popular, the most frequently told. And come on, if you haven't heard it before, you're about to find out why it's the most frequently told of all the Canterbury Tales. The pilgrims have left Canterbury. No, they haven't. They're on their way to Canterbury. The pilgrims have left and they're travelling, and the knight has told his very, very long story. And some of the company found it a little bit boring. So by now, the miller is so drunk that he can barely sit upright on his horse. So he tells a story that is guaranteed to raise a laugh among some of the lower order of pilgrims. So here we go. The Miller's Tale. There was once a carpenter. His name was John, a man perhaps of middling years. He had a wife whose name was Alison, and she was but 18 years old. A comely wench, a pretty lass. And in their home they had, as a lodger, a student named Nicholas. And he studied, and he divined with astrology, and from the stars he could tell all kinds of things about the present and about the future. Also in the house lived a servant and a maid girl. Now Nicholas was entranced by Alison, the carpenter's wife. And although she repelled his advances as time went on, she took a liking to the young student. He came up with a plan. He came up with a plan whereby they could secure the house for themselves and themselves alone. Alison attended church faithfully, and she soon caught the eye of the parish clerk, Absalom. And Absalom also desired to spend some time in pretty Alison's arms. So Absalom could play. It's described in the translation as a guitar. A bit early for guitars, but perhaps we can picture him there in his best clothes, playing at the bedroom window like a troubadour and singing of his love for the beautiful Alison. But all to no avail, for Alison was much more taken with Nicholas, the student, than she was with Absalom, the parish clerk. Now, Nicholas came up with an idea as to how they could convince the carpenter to spend a night on the roof so that the two young lovers could have John the carpenter's bed all to themselves. And the plan that Nicholas came up with was this? He told John the carpenter that he had seen in the stars a prediction that there was to be a great flood, a flood that would rival Noah's. And that if the carpenter wished to save himself and Alison, his wife, and of course Nicholas the student, from the rising waters of the flood, which was due to happen this Saturday, then he needed to find 3 vats, like three barrels, and place them on the roof and fill the barrels with enough food and ale to last for a day, for the flood was only going to last for 1 day. Tie the casks to the roof and make sure you have an axe, so that when the water reaches the top of the roof, you can quickly cut the rope with your axe. And we 3 in our barrels will simply float through the water while everyone around us drowns. So John the carpenter, convinced in the powers of Nicholas' divinations by astrology, did indeed find 3 casks, took a ladder, put the casks up on the roof, tied them with a rope, and in the casks there was bread and cheese and ale and a sharp axe. So Nicholas convinced the servant and the maid to leave the house on an empty errand. That was easy enough. And John the carpenter spent the night asleep, snoring away, in the barrel, the vat on the roof. So I think here we can close the bedroom door and leave Alison and Nicholas with a little privacy for whatever pleasure the young lovers found in each other's arms. Now, the bedroom window to John's bedroom was quite low in the wall. And about this time, Absalom, the parish clerk, came to the window and played sweet music and sang of his love for the lovely Alison. And Alison, who by now really had had enough of Absalom, and she had no intention of kissing him through the window, which is what he was asking for. So she stuck her naked bum through the window. So when Absalom puckered up his lips and kissed, he then said, "Surely no woman has a beard," and realised what it was that he'd kissed. Love is a very fickle thing, and Absalom the clerk's affection for Alison died when he realised the trick she had played on him. And Absalom had a friend who was a blacksmith. So Absalom went to see his friend the blacksmith and borrowed a hot ploughshare, a hot piece of metal. He picked it up by the cold end. So he went back to to the window and called again. But this time it was Nicholas. Nicholas the student, who by now was indeed Nicholas, because he had dropped his breeches and stuck his own arse out of the window. But instead of receiving a kiss from Absalom the clerk, he received the red-hot ploughshare. So Nicholas screamed out in agony and began to shout, "Water! Water! For the love of God, water!" So Absalom swiftly ran away, taking with him the hot ploughshare. John the carpenter, who all this time had been sleeping in the barrel on the roof. You remember John the carpenter? He's still up there. He's still asleep in the barrel on the roof. And he heard someone shouting, "Water! Water! The love of God, water! The flood has arrived." He took his axe, quickly cut through the rope that held the barrel to the roof, and the barrel slid down, crack, onto the pavement below, and poor gullible John, as he landed, managed to break his arm. So Alison and her young lover Nicholas, who by now has pulled his breeches up, run out into the street, where all the neighbours are gathered, looking at John the carpenter as he lays there in a barrel. And Alison, his wife, was saying, "My husband is a little moon-kissed, a little moon-touched. He thinks there's going to be a flood just like Noah's." And so all the neighbours laughed at John. I like to think someone helped him out of the barrel, but the story doesn't actually say that. All the neighbours were laughing at John the carpenter. They're probably also laughing at Nicholas the student, who's probably dancing around with his burnt bum. So John the carpenter, his neighbours all now think he's moon-touched. Absalom, the parish clerk, has got to kiss the fair Alison's derriere. Nicholas the student has a burnt backside, and Alison has had a night with her lover, and is the only person in this tale not to suffer any indignity at all. I rather like that, actually. Well, a little bit of female solidarity there. More Chaucer stories coming up. Please do subscribe to my channel, and I do hope to see you again soon. And I kind of wonder, really, with some of the stories that we now call literature. If they would make it through, if they were presented to a publisher now, if they would ever get to be published. Maybe not, but because they're Chaucer's stories, we get to tell them and we get to read them and we still get to laugh at them. So perhaps we haven't changed so much after all. Hope to see you again soon.